Okay, that's a picture of Fort McNair in Washington, D.C. I'll get back to that in a minute. But this is Prospect Hill and Fort Albany in Arlington, South Arlington, near the Pentagon. Just wanted to talk a little bit again about my structure for a screenplay for the first Do Ask, Do Tell book that focused mostly on just the controversy over Don't Ask, Don't Tell and the military ban as a way to introduce other issues, but to keep the story focused on that theme by focusing on just 3 chapters from that book. One of the things about the issue is that I tied it to the military draft and the way deferment systems worked back in the early 60s, middle 60s, is that even until 1969, as during the Vietnam War, until Nixon was in office, then we had a lottery. And I also focused on the issue of the right to privacy, even for people in the military, people who in the past you didn't get to choose whether you were going to serve in the military if you were a male. And so the privacy when off base and so forth, when in your own private life, to choose consenting adult partners. That was the way we thought about it then. The internet would change a lot of that in the 1990s when Bill Clinton proposed lifting the ban, and we had the debate that we did about conduct versus status. Well, the internet was already starting to change that. Nevertheless, the ultimate theme was that sometimes people have to take on responsibilities and situations that they didn't choose to be put in, and sometimes that means they have to be in a situation of forced intimacy. Well, going to college, of course, you choose, but living in a dorm in 1961 in a male dorm was forced intimacy of a sense, and that kind of corresponded to the forced intimacy of of barracks and basic training, and then in the military when I finally was in the Army in 1968. And so that theme is an underlying theme upon which you tack a lot of other things. Now, there are parts of my life that don't, particularly when I started working and moving from several cities, and between 1970 and until the early 90s, there were, particularly as we got through the AIDS epidemic, as I attended the 9th Street Center, the Rosenfeld stuff, understanding Dan Fry's experience and everything. There are things that don't relate directly to that, but eventually do. There's a whole idea of how you define yourself in terms of what you can do for other people, or letting other people depend on you. That film, The Banshees of Inisherin, kind of hits on that in an indirect way. But still, if you focus more on the military issue itself and where that takes you, in terms of the fact that we don't always choose everything we have to do, you get more mileage as far as a unified theme in the screenplay. Human rights, like a Bill of Rights 2 film in the future, that might look back on this. The right to privacy, which still could be up for grabs, with the loss of Roe versus Wade, Alito, Clarence Thomas, and so forth. The right to privacy, but you could extend that debate today on the right to choose your gender identity. At least some activists want to claim that's a human right. So you need to know where to draw lines and when things have an effect on other people, at least in indirect ways that we don't always understand at first.